Yum. Oh, so, oh, it's been crazy. Crazy day, crazy life, crazy, crazy. Um, and obviously doing my live show a little bit later. So if I say good morning a bunch of times, just know that that's probably why I'm saying good morning, is because I typically do this in the morning and it's already the afternoon. Which is fine. Hi, I don't know who just got on here. Say hello on Facebook if you're here and I don't say hello. And if I say good morning, hey Scott, don't be troubled if I say good morning, because that's me. Shout out to my old nutrition coach, King of Kings Nutrition, where I'd be my nutrition coach, helped me figure out how to get my nutrition in order. So just I want to continue talking about the fact that, so I'm in a master's program talking about paradigms of consciousness, talking about emotional intelligence, and those are the two courses that I'm taking now. Really super excited about both of the courses. Will say that I feel a little bit more at home in talking about the paradigms of consciousness and how things are shifting from one worldview into another worldview, and how that is having an impact on how we see and shape the world. And I think it's critical to talk about because most people don't really understand what they're seeing in this world right now. They're sort of confused, and as they should be. And it's because everybody's confused, including the individuals who have shaped our environment for so long, right? We talk about the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the this, the that, and all these individuals. Well, they literally utilized, right, a worldview to their own benefit at the time. And now we're in a space where things are shifting so vastly that we get to create what we want to see. And so that is a little bit challenging for some people. And the reason why is because they get caught up in their own personal stories, or they're getting washed up in emotion. Now, this is not a bad thing. It's okay to be washed up in emotion. It's okay to allow your emotions to move through you because they're critical and important. Emotional states give us sort of an understanding of the environment around us. Is it good? Is it not good? But when we don't know how to regulate the emotional states within our own self, right, then we're not able to create or be in a space of creation. And so we're not able to create or give back to the worldview or create our own paradigms. So what it's telling us is we get to shape and create what we see. We have the choice to step into what we want to see in the world. Now, this takes personal responsibility. It takes us being responsible for what's going on with us. And part of that is for our own emotional states and regulation. Now, I love that I'm reading stuff on emotional states because there's something that typically in, I'll say, the older worldview or paradigm, the older worldview really talked about how if your emotional states don't look like what they should, like for instance, you're constantly have anxiety and your anxiety is really super high, that there's a problem with you. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to go ahead and give you medicine. We're just going to go ahead and give you a pill, and that pill should take care of it. And then you should function the way you're supposed to. But we know that the pharmaceutical companies, well, their drugs are not really working for people. What's happening to these individuals? Well, what's happening to these individuals is that they're taking pills, they're consuming all of this chemicals in their body, and it's putting their body into a different state of being. Not a natural state of being, because usually, typically, medicine was the food. The creation that God made was our medicine, and it still is. But they've manufactured things in, these chemists have manufactured pills. Now, I'm not going to tell people what right, wrong, good, or bad for them in terms of their medical position, okay? That's not the point here. But perhaps to think about a different way to look at your emotional states, not as there's something wrong with you, not as you're broken, Not as, oh, you need to go to a psych ward. Oh, you're crazy or whatever else, okay? Or you're just because you think differently and you think outside of the societal norms, or you may act a little differently, that we're going to ostracize you and we're just going to disconnect you and put you in this space where you're crazy. You're in the crazy ward, okay? But what if there was something that offered the ability to understand your emotions and understand how to transition into healthier states of mind and being? To take the anxiety into a place of peace and tranquility. And what if it was just that understanding of the emotion and how to transition to that space? It's what I've been talking about for so long on Spirit and Coffee, but perhaps I have a better way to communicate to the masses what I talk about when I regulate my emotion. When I go from uncomfortable back into the comfort. When I allow myself to go from states of stress, distress, high anxiety, sadness, and all of the uncomfortable emotions that we experience. Hey, Jennifer. When we experience those uncomfortable feelings, how do we allow ourselves to stretch a little bit more, know where our tolerance level is, allow ourselves to retreat so that we can recreate a space that is harmonious for us, that allows us to experience the joy, the happiness, the creativity. So it was really good because when Curtis was here, and I just want to talk about that, there was this big focus on mental states and people with mental disorders, and I'm going to say quote unquote mental disorders, and how the industry labels people with mental disorders. That we look at these individuals as though there's something wrong with them. Well, we all have a little crazy in us. I have crazy in me. If I went to a psych ward and told them all my beliefs and my imagination and how I relate to the world, I would be admitted like this. According to them, I'd be crazy off my rocker. And that's how society typically engages with people. They say, oh, they're crazy. She's crazy. They're crazy. And so we, by definition, listen to what they tell us. Oh, well, I must be crazy. I must be out of my mind. And I have to take this. Well, what if we said, well, no, everybody experiences some level of stress, anxiety, sadness, depression, whatever it is. It's just that some know how to regulate that emotion. And what if there was a system in place that said, hey, look, this is how you can regulate that emotion to bring yourself back into happiness, joy? What if the medical professional said, you know, you're not crazy. It's just that you may have never had an environment in a space in which you can actually regulate those emotional states that were uncomfortable. And because you were never taught that or never shown how to do that, then now it's super difficult for you to get into those spaces of emotion that allow you to be creative and open and fluid. Good morning, Tom. Hi, Miss Coffee. Yes. Cheers. And I'm drinking coffee a little bit later than normal. So there you go. And it's good to see you, Tom. I haven't seen you on here in a while. Perhaps it's because I'm back and forth on times and God knows what else. So again, how do we transition from this old paradigm, worldview, thought process on people and how they regulate emotion and what emotion means? Now, we do know that in some religious aspects, there are religions, not that any of them are right, wrong, good, or bad, so I'm not going to go there with that, but there are some aspects of religion that totally dismiss emotional states of being. They say, oh, or I'm not going to say that they take out emotion. They take out what we call negative emotions, our emotions that are uncomfortable, and they deny them completely. But how can we deny something that we're experiencing? And the majority of us have these experiences. That's like saying, I don't see you when you're right in front of my face, and then smacking you and saying, oh no, you didn't feel that because it's not real. No, you felt it. You felt the slap. So for me to say that it's not real or true from your experience, now for me, I can say, well, I slapped you, but it's not real. But from your experience, it is real, and it caused some kind of discomfort on your end. So we can't say it's not true. We can only say there was an experience there, and that experience may be true. But how do we say, okay, based on this experience, how do we engage the experience? How do we view this experience? And then it goes into the words and dialogue and dialect and all of this, and context and content, and how it goes into a lot more. Obviously, it goes deeper down the rabbit hole. But at the end of the day, the emotional experience of pain and trauma is still there. You can still feel it. It's still very real. You too, Tom. Bye. It's good to see you. Cheers. You can still feel it. Tell me if there's a little bit of a lag time, you guys, on this stream, because it looks like it might be having some, I don't know what it sounds like over there on your guys' end, so might have to fix the stream on that end. So again, emotional states and how we actually feel and how we relate to those, and allowing ourselves to go from the disharmony into harmony that we can't deny. You could say, I'm going to totally deny the fact that I'm having uncomfortable feelings, and act as though you're not angry, or act as though you're not upset, or act as though you're sad, or act, you can act as though you're not these things, but internally there's the feeling of, I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm upset, I'm whatever it is that you're feeling. Is that Adriana? Yeah, it's Adriana. Hi, Adriana. And so how do we then shift ourselves into a space of harmony? So going through the dark emotions. And I think that's critical now. I think it's a thought process that is starting to gain some momentum in terms of, the medical field, in terms of psychology, is just looking at how do we look at these uncomfortable emotions, and then how do we move through them. Now, I can tell you from the information that I've been reading, it's allowing ourselves to come back to a state of regulation and learning how to regulate the emotion. Now, if we were young and conditioned or preconditioned or pre-programmed not to understand how to do this, and starting from childhood up to adult, it doesn't mean that your life's over. It can never happen. We have the capacity and ability to grow these things over time. It takes a practice, of course. So how do we practice, right? How do we begin to practice these things? How do we practice allowing ourselves to go through the anxiety or the stress, and then stretch ourselves a little further? And that's really where our tolerance level is. How much are we willing to tolerate? Are we setting boundaries for ourselves? In the boundaries that we're setting for ourselves, are we allowing ourselves to communicate the boundaries? Are we paying attention to the cues in our body when there's a state of distress coming up? When we're feeling something in our body, are we paying attention to it? Or are we not? Is there fear around disconnecting from the discomfort? Because sometimes people stay in uncomfortable situations for what purpose, I'm not sure what the function is for them. I personally cannot stay in toxic environments for too long, and I won't. my tolerance level for toxic environments is very low. But sometimes people's tolerance level is higher, and so they stay in toxic situations longer. So it's building the tolerance. It's understanding what your tolerance level is. If your tolerance level's high in negative affect, I would say, and this is not researched, I'm sure there's research out here that might say it, but if your tolerance level's high in positive affect, meaning positive experiences, that perhaps you'll stay in toxic environments longer. But if you transitioned into a positive affect environment and your tolerance level starts to drop for those environments that are toxic, I'm going to ask my professor that question because I think that's a valid question. So it's kind of like pain threshold if we looked at it that way. Think about the pain that you have. And sometimes people can tolerate more pain because they're used to being in pain longer or having higher levels of pain. And so their tolerance level is higher than that of somebody who's never in pain. So when someone who isn't in pain experiences pain, it's too much. But it's almost like the frog in the pot. That's probably the easiest way. If you boil a frog in a pot, eventually it dies because the heat just sort of, it sort of gets used to the heat, right? Eventually it adapts to the heat, and before you know it, it's too hot that it can't survive, so it dies. So asking yourself if you're stewing in a toxic environment, and if your tolerance level is so high that you're allowing yourself to stay there longer than necessary. I have, like I said, I have very little tolerance for toxic environments. I will get out of toxic environments like that because my tolerance level is not high. Now, as I build tolerance, okay. Oh, hi, Nicole. Oh, yeah. I know, and I'm doing it a little bit later today. Hopefully you guys can hear me. If there's some problems with the cutting in and out, let me know because I might need to change the bit rate on it. My channel, I had to redo everything. So my computer updated, and when I reopened up my OBS system, I had to figure out myself how to recreate what was already created, which is good because that gave me the education, so I'm not dependent on someone if they leave, which is what happened. But I think the bit rate might be, I need to lower it. So please give me feedback on that. That would be great. I'll go back and watch it just to see. But again, the tolerance. Now I'm building tolerance from the opposite perspective, meaning that I was able to tolerate a toxic environment a little bit longer than normal. And it was good only because I was aware that it was a toxic environment, and I knew that if it got even more toxic that I wasn't going to handle it. But I was able to maintain composure for the majority of the time until my threshold was met, and then I exploded. Now, this is good, not a bad thing, because now I'm understanding how to use emotional states of anxiety and shift back into peace and harmony. But I'm on the flip side of this, where I experience more positive environment than toxic environment. And so when I experience toxic environments, I take myself out of them so that I can experience the positive environment. I feel like most people in our society are experiencing the toxic environment more than not. And then when a positive environment comes, they're not used to it. And somehow they get drawn back into this toxic space. They don't know how to manage or maintain, so their tolerance level for positive influence is low, perhaps. And they can only handle it for certain amounts. But if you grow that, if you allow yourself to blossom into that you can handle those, and then your toxicity or the environments of stress will decrease. It's a practice, of course, and understanding So you'd have to understand for yourself, what does it mean to be in a positive environment? What does it mean to truly love myself, to value myself enough to know what's toxic, what's not toxic, all those things. So you'd have to really understand those things about you and understand what it feels like to experience joy and happiness, and then live into that experience more and more and more and more as time progresses. So it's sort of stretching yourself into a space that you may not be comfortable with. Some people are not comfortable with positive environments. I know people like that. There's people in my life that typically are used to very toxic, negative environments. Okay. So as I continue to move through this work, I will continue to share with you guys what is happening. Good morning, sweet palmist. How are you? I think I said that right, hopefully. So there you have it. Definitely tomorrow I'm going to have on my Podbean. So if you guys want to get on just the vocal, have one of my viewers is going to get on and share his story, which I'm really excited about. And I'm going to start learning how to perhaps have other people join. I don't know how that would be possible. Perhaps on these other live videos. It's kind of hard because I do the both Podbean and I do the live stream. But to have more guests on would be really important. And maybe just the Podbean, I'll do it. Maybe not the live stream. But trying to figure that out because I have people in my master's program who would love to come and share their story, and I'd love for them to. Also, if you ever want to share your story, let me know. Reach out to me. I'm always open to have guests or people on. I'm only seeing life through my perception, which is so tiny. I mean, it's really nothing in the spectrum of what the possibilities of what is. And so because of that, I would really, I'd love to expand the horizons and hear from other people and know how other people are viewing and witnessing the world around them, because what they have to say is valuable as well. What you have to say is valuable as well. And I'd love for you guys to share that. So there you have it. Okay, so I'm going to let you go. I just wanted to make sure that I got on here and I was able to deliver this message. And I'm going to take a look at the stream and see if it just was a total flop and I need to lower the bit rate or whatever. I'll figure it out, I promise you. Okay, so I love you guys. Have the best day ever. And I will be seeing you. You'll be hearing from me and seeing you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.